Earth Day. It's a special edition of Porch Chats with Colleen Condon. I'm chair of the Charleston County Democratic Party, and we're reaching out to folks to celebrate Earth Day today. And today we've got with us candidate David Quick. How are you doing, David?
I'm great, and happy Earth Day to you and everybody in Charleston watching.
Terrific. Now, David, what are you running for?
I am running for South Carolina House Seat 112. It's an East Cooper district. It's composed of Isle of Palm, Sullivan's Island, the old Mount Pleasant area, not including Old Village, okay, the Rifle Range Road corridor, and then it skips over to Highway 17, gerrymanders, and we'll get to that later, over to Snee Farm, Brickyard Plantation, and Park West. So that's basically it.
Okay.
It weaves a little bit in and out as these districts do. So, but that's basically it.
And you've been super involved in basically every environmental issue that's been important in Charleston County recently. So I thank you for your dedicated work you've put in already.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I do it from my heart. In fact, I left my job early at the Post and Courier, retired early, because I felt the calling to work on environmental issues and political issues, because I just feel like it's a critical time for the Low Country, for South Carolina, the United States, and the entire planet. And you know, my dad was a Methodist minister, so he always talked about calling and hearing your calling. And so I'm very well aware of that. You know, whether it's a divine thing or just something just innate within us. I think we all have that, and we need to answer that calling.
Do you feel like that issue has stepped up during COVID times?
I think so, because I think COVID and the earth are so intertwined. I mean, think about the issues with human overpopulation, moving into areas, wilderness areas, eating animals that, you know, aren't really typical for the 21st century. You know, maybe back when there was a lower human population and you were in the bush, and so you got you know, human overpopulation, deforestation, eating endangered animals. So some of them think that the pangolin was the source of the COVID-19 virus, and that is an endangered species that is really getting hit hard by poaching. And you have that issue, and then you have the climate as a whole warming and causing a lot of chaos in the natural world, from droughts and wildfires to hurricanes and tornadoes. I mean, we just had you know, a couple of rounds of tornadoes within the past week, and then you know we may still be dealing with COVID when hurricane season rolls around. And as all of us are well aware, we've had 5 or 6 storms that are worthy of evacuation in the past 5 years, consecutive. We haven't called a break. It's very
odd to have these multiple 100-year storms, and realizing they're not 100-year storms anymore.
Right. Like annual events. So, but, you know, part of what we're going to have to do is, you know, work on climate and resilience and find ways to work with nature and to, you know, try to use nature to our benefit. And there are a lot of things we can do that work with nature that also involve resilience. And I think downtown Charleston is kind of touching on it and dancing around it a little bit. Of course, the Army Corps of Engineers, as you may have read, just released their report on the most expensive project in Charleston's history, single project, with building a big wall around the city. And, you know, we're going to have to try to figure out ways to be resilient that maybe are a little bit less costly and work with nature as opposed to just wall up against nature. So anyway, I think that's something that people who have environmental literacy in office are important. I mean, you don't have to learn from scratch or be convinced. You already know the issues.
So if you get elected to the State House, what do you feel like will be your priorities that you can accomplish in the State House that will help?
Well, first and foremost, and this is an issue I think a lot of people maybe have gotten complacent on, but it's still the most important issue, I think, to South Carolina and our economy, is protecting our coast from offshore oil drilling and seismic testing. And the Trump administration, even though I think oil price went to zero yesterday, according to CNN Business, the Permian Basin down in Texas, they're laying off workers. We have a glut of oil, and yet we still want to explore for oil in the Atlantic. It makes no sense with the risk inherent with offshore oil drilling and how important our waterways and our ocean is to South Carolina's economy and our way of life and our lifestyle. And I think so that's got to be number one. We can't take our eye off the ball on that one. We have to make sure that future generations, because once oil drilling is off our coast, it's there for at least a century.
Right.
Once the infrastructure's in, once the drilling starts, then you've got the potential for leaks. That all these a lot of these Gulf offshore drilling sites have leaks, like small leaks. So there's this constant oil spill, even though there's not a big one. By the way, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, 10-year anniversary yesterday, should serve as another reminder to us of what can happen. So besides that, I think that we really need to think about our energy. I think the Public Service Commission needs to be overhauled, I should say. I think we need to put members on Public Service Commission that actually serve the public and not the utility companies. And I think we also need to think about moving our energy away from coal-fired plants to sun and wind energy. And we have so much sun. I'm looking out today. It's a beautiful Carolina blue sky. You know what they call a sunny day, right? It's a solar spill. What do you call a solar spill? A beautiful day. So I bought that one. But we got lots of wind. Wind is picking up a little bit.
Yeah. Between
wind and solar, I mean, Scotland now produces twice as much energy as it needs from wind alone.
I did not know that.
Yes. They are actually having to find ways to use that energy. And so they're actually working on hydrogen batteries, hydrogen projects to use the excess energy. I think South Carolina could be in that same position. And I think not only will it provide jobs and opportunities for farms to supplement their income, to kind of level off those bad years, we have so much potential for solar and wind in South Carolina. It's almost chilling. To me, it's like we've got both hands tied behind our backs. Why don't we unleash that power, which is clean? Close the coal-fired plants. Santee Cooper, I think, has 2 or 3, but there's 5 total. If we just close the coal-fired plants and move directly into solar and wind, we can cut our carbon output, the state's total carbon output, dramatically. I mean, you don't even have to change driving your fossil fuel car, though I'm a big fan of electric cars. But we could in one fell swoop, by closing coal-fired plants, dramatically decrease our total carbon output in the state of South Carolina. I don't know if many legislators know this. I mean, it's the South Carolina Coastal Conservation League has lots of research on this. It is doable. And I think we need leadership there that's not going to hesitate on renewables.
Agreed. That would be so nice. mean, recycling is another example here in the state where there really doesn't seem to be much support from the state to make recycling functional and financially empowering.
Well, I've got an idea about that.
Okay.
And I think that recycling has become problematic across the country and across the world because there's so much of it. I think we need a bottle bill in South Carolina that puts the onus back on the drink manufacturers to take care of their containers. And I'm talking about plastic bottles, I'm talking about aluminum, and I'm talking about glass. And if you can separate those items out of the collection, the total collection, you keep the dry paper goods cleaner, so they don't get soiled, and then you also have a very neat system of keeping those beverage containers in their own category too. And you give people who maybe have a little bit less opportunity, or schools, an opportunity to collect these. It's an incentive to pick up cans and bottles and put them back into good use. So I really think that one of the things I'd really like to do is work with somebody up there to get a bottle bill. And all the bottle bills that got passed were I think in the 70s. And then the drink manufacturers caught on and started lobbying hard to keep other states from joining in. And I think it's time to revisit that because they're making their profits off of the drinks.
Mm-hmm.
It should be on them to take care of the containers that they're making profits off of.
Yeah, while I was on council, it changed so dramatically from the gas prices being high and having a good value for plastic to it being so worthless. But it's one thing to compare current costs for recycling against current costs for landfilling, but it's not correct unless you measure current costs for recycling against current and future costs of landfilling.
Right.
And that mistake's often made in those calculations.
Right. And we really need to think about landfills too, because they're sources of methane, which goes back to the climate crisis. Methane is a gas that is the most potent greenhouse gas. And so we can't ignore the impact of methane, and anything we're putting into the landfill contributes to the methane issue. Getting back to the plastics part, I think we need legislators up there that will stand with home rule and protect our plastic bans, because they keep trying every session to take away municipalities and counties' right to say, no, we don't want plastic bags in our community. Now, if an inland county doesn't want that, even though the bags can end up in streams and rivers, then so be it. But let the localities make that decision. And I think it's very interesting that they're willing to kind of chip away at home rule when we fought so hard for our plastic bans, and we want that. And so that's another thing that I will vow to do on the environmental front up at the State House is to, you can guarantee I will fight to keep our plastic bans in place.
Well, David, you've told us some great reasons and things you're going to do if you get elected up in the State House. Tell people a little bit more about you. Why are you the right person in addition to the environment? Well,
I appreciate that question because I have always lived in my district. I've only lived 18 months on Sullivan's Island, but I lived on Center Street first, and then I've lived in my current residence off of Ben Sawyer Boulevard for the last 23 years. And I covered the area as a reporter for a good first half of my career. I loved it. I went into schools. I got to know all the leadership. Still am in contact with some of the past leaders former mayors, in almost daily contact via Facebook with a lot of them. And some of them are Republicans, and some have already expressed some interest in supporting me, which I think says something about, my commitment to this community. I think we have some wonderful assets in this community, and I want to protect them. One of my themes of this campaign is protect what we love. And I think a lot of us in the East Cooper area have a common love of our beaches and our parks and our waterways and our creeks and our wildlife and our kids. I mean, I don't have any kids, but I have neighborhood kids. I love them to death. And one of the other issues that's very important to me is education. And we need to support our schools and our teachers. And I am 100% behind moving forward with making sure our schools are funded well, that teachers are funded well, that they're not taking money out of their own personal accounts to pay for supplies. That is, we have young people who are going into teaching that are leaving after a year because they can't stand it. That is wrong. That sets up a bad situation in the future for our children. If we love our children, we should be showing some love to the schools and the educators. So I think all these things tie in together.
Which ties us back into the current pandemic. Hopefully, we've realized the skill and expertise involved in being a teacher.
Right. So getting back to your original question, I've lived here a long time. I love this place. A lot of times when I go on vacation, I can't wait to get back home. I just love being here. I feel like I'm missing out, FOMO for sure. I love every one of the communities here. And I think every one of them has something special, and it's part of the fabric of the entire Charleston area. And I want to make sure we fit in and think about the entire Charleston community too in what we do.
And I think people are going to be surprised to realize that Mount Pleasant isn't as conservative or Republican as people believe it to be still.
Right.
I think there's a real good chance that you can win this race, and we can win other races in Mount Pleasant.
Well, as a runner, I know you got to run the race to even have a chance. And I think it's great that we've gone from a district that I don't think we even had a Democratic candidate in 4 years ago to one in 2018 that was pretty competitive, and now 3 down to 2. So there's actually a primary. I mean, who would have thought that in 2016 or prior?
Right.
And I've served as a poll worker the past 3 elections. I felt like I really wanted to see that firsthand, and get a feel for that dynamic. And I encourage everybody, if you've got the time, or even if you don't, to do that. I think it's part of contributing to our democracy, which is so special and yet still so fragile. And you learn a lot. And I saw people, like I said, I've lived here a long time. I know people's faces, and I have a general idea of maybe how they would lean. And I saw people come to the Democratic, to the election that I would have not expected.
Right.
The primary, the Democratic primary.
The presidential primary, I think.
Presidential primary. And maybe some of them were voting, in a scheming kind of way. But I didn't get the sense of that a lot of that happened.
I don't think so either.
In what I saw with my eyes. And I was there, 12 hours, 14-hour day.
And I believe people know you and trust you, and they realize your values.
Yeah. Well, so I think the district might be purple, maybe reddish purple, or we'll see. I think Joe Cunningham has shown that you can be a Democrat and put low country over party, which he did several times. I didn't agree on all the issues that he voted on, but for the most part, he's done a great job. And I think he is, the perfect case scenario that the Democrats can win and serve and represent the low country.
And I think you've got a good team of Democratic colleagues there in Mount Pleasant. I look forward to seeing the race, both the primary as well as this fall. Now, David, if people want to get to know more about you or contact you, what's your website? What are the other ways they should reach out?
So I'm trying to keep my expenses very low. Given the situation we're in now, people going to food banks, people I know who haven't been working. I think I wanted to start out as a low cost campaign anyway. I wanted my work to speak for itself, and my efforts to get the word out to be on me. So I'm trying to keep my expenses low. No website. Right now I have a Facebook page dedicated to it, an Instagram page, and I'll be out and about, meeting people face to face. As you know, I usually greet you with a hug. I think the days of handshakes and hugs are over, at least for the short term. And that's a handicap for me, because I'm a big fan of meeting people face to face, looking them in the eye and shaking their hand. I often wonder what my late father would think of the handshake going away.
Yeah.
It was such an important thing to him,
right?
To meet people and actually shake their hand or put their hand on their shoulder. And I'm gonna have to retrain myself, really. So no website, but Facebook and Instagram, and I'll be getting out, and hopefully people will remember my name. And I would like, before we wrap up, I would like to promote some things about this coming Earth Day today, if you don't mind.
Please.
I was working on helping out with several Earth Day events earlier this winter, and then COVID hit and all those things disappeared. But we're trying to encourage people to create art for Earth Day tomorrow and to post it on a page, whether it's singing or reciting poetry or writing something special, or sidewalk chalk art with your kids, or painting a quick picture, or drawing something, or any number of artistic things. And then go to this page here, this Facebook page, Charleston Earth Day Art Share.
Okay.
And post the art on there. And then use these hashtags: Earth Day Art Challenge, Cultivate Art Science, and hashtag Earth Day 2020. Can you see that pretty good?
Yeah.
And then one more thing. The South Carolina Aquarium has a really cool thing that they're doing. Since South Carolina Aquarium, Surfrider, and Waterkeeper have always been doing a really great job of getting people together to pick up litter, plastic litter, a lot of plastic. But the South Carolina Aquarium is now encouraging people to do a solo sweep challenge.
Okay.
So any afternoon, anywhere that you've noticed that there's a lot of trash, go out, maybe a friend or a partner, and go on the other side of the road, maybe today through April 30th, and hashtag it solo sweep. They have a Facebook page as well. And then tonight, unrelated to the aquarium, Earth Day South Carolina is addressing the climate crisis. It's going to be live on Facebook, 7 to 8 p.m. Tonight.
Terrific.
And so those are 3 things that people can do for Earth Day. This was going to be the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. It was going to be a really huge celebration in Charleston and across the United States. 50 years. And that first Earth Day was followed by the most environmental legislation that we've ever witnessed. Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, Endangered Species Act, National Environmental Protection Act, and it turned the tide on pollution in the United States. I mean, we had rivers on fire in the 60s that they were so toxic, and people came together, celebrated the earth, and put pressure on both parties. Remember, President Nixon was in office at the time. He signed this legislation. You could argue that President Nixon was the most environmental president in our history based on the legislation that he signed. But, you know, all the other stuff overpowers that.
Yeah.
And Trump now overpowers Nixon.
Good point.
Yeah.
David, thank you.
But anyway, thank you for letting me say that. I really hope people will take time to celebrate Earth Day and also make Earth Day every day. You know, do a little bit for the environment every day in all your actions.
Perfect. Well, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Colleen. And thank you and Rob and all the leadership of Charleston County Democratic Party for promoting the candidates and being so supportive of us and encouraging. And I think it's going to pay off.
Well,
so
good.
Thank you.
That's the hope. Have a great day. Happy Earth Day.
All right. Thank you, Colleen. Bye-bye.